Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a literal battle of microscopic and sometimes macroscopic proportions. We're unpacking a massive biological puzzle, the incredibly high-contrast dichotomy of how our immune system fights off single-celled protozoa versus massive multicellular helminths. For those of you studying advanced infectious diseases, it's a fascinating tale of two completely different survival pathways. And honestly, mastering this is absolutely crucial when you consider the millions of people globally affected by diseases like malaria and schistosomiasis.
Okay, look at this core principle. Kill intracellular protozoa with Th1-driven cellular immunity. Expel large extracellular helminths with Th2-driven IgE eosinophils and mast cells. If you remember literally one single concept from today, please make it this. The immune system is essentially making a binary decision based on the size and location of the invader. It asks, do we need a highly specialized cellular hit squad to clear out an intracellular infection, or do we need a massive coordinated flush to expel a giant extracellular worm?
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the parasitic challenge, move into innate recognition, map out the Th1 protozoan response, switch over to the Th2 Helminth response, and wrap up with immune evasion and pathology.
Section 1. The Parasitic Challenge. We need to talk about biological diversity and size. The fundamental issue we're dealing with here is spatial contrast. I mean, think about it. A microscopic intracellular threat like Plasmodium needs a vastly different immunological solution than a large multicellular helminth like an Ascaris or a schistosoma worm. You literally cannot phagocytose a multicellular worm. It would be like a macrophage trying to swallow a freight train. It's just not going to happen. So these extreme spatial dimensions completely dictate our immune polarization. Moving to Section 2, Innate Recognition and Barriers. This is our first line of defense. Before the adaptive system even wakes up, the body has to realize the walls have actually been breached. Initially, parasites hit physical and chemical barriers, stuff like keratinized skin, gastric acid, and mucosal surfaces. But once those are bypassed, our pattern recognition receptors, or PRRs, instantly detect the parasite's pathogen-associated molecular patterns, alongside the damage-associated molecular patterns created by tissue destruction. This triggers NF-kappa B inflammatory signaling, which basically kicks off a massive wave of cytokines and chemokines to call for backup. Right as those initial alarms start ringing, the complement system jumps into the fray. It tries to opsonize the parasite with C3b, pull in leukocytes using C3a and C5a, or just directly blast the pathogen apart with the membrane attack complex. But there's a pretty big catch here. A lot of parasites have already evolved resistance to this complement-mediated killing. Because of that, our bodies are forced to rely heavily on the adaptive branches of the immune system. Which brings us to Section 3, Protozoa and Th1 immunity. Let's look at the intracellular defense pathway. Let's track this specific cascade designed to hunt down intracellular protozoa, like Leishmania or Plasmodium. Dendritic cells capture the parasite antigen and secrete IL-12. Now, this is a massive high-yield point for you guys. IL-12 is the ultimate polarizing signal here. It drives naive CD4-positive T cells straight into Th1 differentiation. And once differentiated, these Th1 cells unleash their absolute primary weapon, interferon gamma.
Interferon gamma is essentially the master switch. It flips resting macrophages into highly lethal effector cells that can neutralize those hidden intracellular targets. It supercharges phagolysosome function and absolutely floods that intracellular space with reactive oxygen species and reactive nitrogen intermediate. We also see CD8-positive T cells rapidly stepping up, dropping additional IFN-γ and directly executing infected cells using perforin and granzymes. It's highly targeted and highly lethal.
Synthesizing this into some key clinical takeaways, you'll notice our cellular response shifts entirely based on which anatomical compartment the protozoan occupies. For instance, in a complex infection like malaria, when the parasite is hiding in the liver, those CD8-positive T cells are absolutely critical. But when it bursts into the bloodstream, we suddenly rely on IgG antibodies for opsonophagocytosis. The whole immune response is incredibly stage-specific.
All right, on to Section 4, Helminths and Th2 immunity, the extracellular defense.
Now, the immune system is looking at a macroscopic problem that it can't just swallow. We're talking about helminths. When these worms damage epithelial surfaces, literally tearing their way through our tissue, that physical trauma releases what we call alarmins, specifically IL-25, IL-33, and TSLP. These alarmins urgently trigger a heavily structured Th2 cascade, giving us a massive influx of interleukins 4, 5, and 13. IL-4 handles the IgE class switching, IL-5 calls in and activates the eosinophils, and IL-13 coordinates the entire mucosal expulsion response.
So, this brings up a fascinating question about biological scale. If a macrophage physically can't swallow a macroscopic worm, how on earth does the body actually kill it?
The answer is ADCC, or antibody-dependent cellular cytotoxicity.
Instead of trying to ingest the parasite, eosinophils dock onto the worm using antibodies and unleash a highly localized extracellular bombardment. The eosinophil recognizes the antibody-coated surface, binds to it via Fc receptors, and literally empties its toxic granules right onto the worm. It drops heavy payloads like major basic protein and eosinophil peroxidase, physically burning a hole straight through the helminth's protective surface.
But we don't just stop at chemical burns, right? We follow up with aggressive mechanical flushing. Beyond direct cytotoxicity, the host uses IL-13 to drastically alter the intestinal environment, flushing the helminth right out of the system in what we call the weep and sweep response. Goblet cells undergo hyperplasia, pumping out massive amounts of mucus to trap the worm. Mast cells degranulate, releasing histamine to increase vascular permeability, and smooth muscle starts contracting violently, ramping up peristalsis to forcefully sweep the worm entirely out of the body.
What happens next is truly fascinating. To survive the immense collateral damage from this macroscopic war, our host relies on M2, or alternatively activated macrophages. Driven by IL-4 and IL-13, these M2 macrophages aggressively go in to repair the tissue, remodel the extracellular matrix, and wall off the parasite. Though, as we're about to see, excessive M2 activity comes with its own major risks.
Which leads us to Section 5, Immune Evasion and Pathology. We are looking at a very precarious balance.
Listen, parasites are ancient survivors. They don't just sit around waiting to be attacked. They employ antigenic variation, constantly shifting their surface proteins so our antibodies become completely useless. They shed antigens as decoys, and perhaps most deviously, they use molecular mimicry to resemble our own tissues. They even actively exploit our regulatory T cells to suppress our inflammation. By cranking up the production of IL-10 and TGF-beta, they essentially force the immune system to stand down, ensuring they can persist chronically inside the host.
But what happens when the immune system refuses to stand down? We get severe immunopathology. Clinically, in diseases like schistosomiasis, it's actually our own aggressive immune response, not the adult worm itself, that causes the devastating fibrotic organ damage. The parasite's eggs get trapped in our tissues. The immune system relentlessly attacks those trapped eggs, causing massive granuloma formation, chronic inflammation, and eventual organ failure. It's exactly why millions globally suffer from the late stages of these diseases.
So ultimately, as a host, you are walking a remarkably precarious immunological tightrope. If regulatory T cells don't calm the response down, we end up destroying our own organs through severe immunopathology. But if there's too much regulation, the immune system is essentially blindfolded, allowing the parasite to hang around chronically for years, sometimes decades.
And this leaves us with the ultimate question for modern medicine. In the face of rapid antigenic variation and severe immunopathology, how do we design vaccines or therapies that can overcome millions of years of parasite evolution, prevent fibrotic tissue damage, and finally achieve true sterilizing immunity? It is absolutely the grand challenge for the next generation of immunologists. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.